Well, I've got some tidying up to do around the plot, just superficial stuff, just to get it looking, you know, acceptable. And then I'm going to give you a bit of an unusual plot tour for April. Bearing in mind, it's pretty darn freezing here today. Anyway, let's get these things tidied. Well, tidying on an allotment, when do you stop? It's never ending. But I've got a few things cleared up which I wanted out of the way before I give you a plot tour. And yeah, this is a bit of an unusual plot tour. I'll show you what I mean. So it's unusual in that, well, there's pretty much nothing to show you. So all 8 of my beds for raised bed growing are pretty much empty apart from some weed. And I noticed this weed is the prolific weed this year. It's like, I call it goosegrass. It's almost sticky, and quite a lot of the compost that I brought over here has that weed that seemed to survive the heat of the compost heap. But thankfully it's a really easy one to get out and pull the root, so it takes only a few seconds. And I think those other weeds are actually poppies, so I might just take a few of those out and transplant them, see how we go. So into the main bed, and again, completely empty apart from garlic. And I've been watching a lot of YouTube, and it's striking how many people have got lettuce out and various crops, and my beds are bare. But to be fair, the last 3 days here, temperatures went down to -4. And well, anything I put out in that sort of temperature is really asking for it. So I usually think planting out beginning of May. So the main thing is that my seeds are coming on, and we'll have another look at those on another video. I've still got to get that parsnip out of this bed. I have done a bit of superficial weeding. It took just minutes, but it does make sure that we don't get anything that gets entrenched. So nothing in those. Nothing in my recovered beds, apart from a few weeds, which I need to get out before they get cracking. Same with this one. I've still got to finish this construction, and we're not far off now. Got to do a little bit of make do and mend, because those long lengths are not quite long enough for the bed, but that's okay. We can use a couple of offcuts like this just to make up the difference. So I've got all my ironwork back. You probably saw me gathering it all, so that'll be useful when I want to start supporting things. You'll have noticed I've done all the lawn. People don't like watching me mow the lawn, so I tend to do that off camera, but it does shape up nicely once I've given it its first cut. This bed, I've got to go around the edge. Again, it doesn't take very long just to trim the edge, but getting that sort of shelf down in the edge really helps to make sure that you don't get weed ingress into the bed. And well, there's been a lot of suggestions about this bed, and I've warmed to a number of them, and I'm thinking perhaps grow onions in here this year, because I've never grown onions in there, and that will of course help with the white rot situation that I've got on the plot. And well, the pond always suffers when I cut the grass because it gets clippings on it, but they disappear pretty quick. I can get the worst of those off a bit later on. Got some beautiful flowers here. Fantastic how they've come back. And we've got 2 good gooseberry bushes there which are unbelievably in flower. And I haven't really got room for those on my fruit garden, so I'm just going to leave them there. But it's going to be an interesting journey because I intend to have the gooseberries on the fruit bed covered this year with a mesh, and these I won't. So we'll see how they fare with the dreaded sawfly. My red currants are coming into leaf now, and I shaped them earlier in the year. They're looking fine. I've got plenty of room around here, and they seem to do well when they're just left to their own devices. And it's always noticeable how this one tends to be at a different stage to the others, but they're fine, and we'll hope for a decent crop this year. And I had a lot of seed down here, and I said I'd wait and see what it is, and it's that dreaded goosegrass. So that was clearly quite prevalent in some of the compost that I was making. And it's interesting to think that this was all winter work here. If you remember, I had my compost bins here. Of course, my new compost area, following all my winter projects, is over here, and it's that much more extended and working really well. Put my grass into my purely garden waste section. We're going to see what the compost looks like in there. And well, I'm fast approaching the time when I can start to move some of the major heap I've got in the middle there back into these bins as they diminish in size. This was a bit of a find. Somebody thrown out some of that, well, like astroturf, synthetic lawn. And I guess if you use it for a dog or something like that out in the garden, then there's a risk that it gets a bit smelly after a while. And I think probably that's what it was that caused them to throw it out. But it doesn't matter to me. A few rainy days, it's cleaned up, but it's certainly made a very attractive route into my chicken coop area. While I'm down here, this is my sort of nursery area, as you know, and you can see how that little bit of extra warmth has caused these raspberries to really leaf up and move on. I've got a rhubarb coming through there and some Welsh onions in that one, and then of course the spare raspberries following my big raspberry project. And then down here, not sure what these are. They just appeared, but I'm trying to give them some breathing space to see what they turn into. Perhaps they're bluebells, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see. I don't like looking at this area. You know, when you clean up a plot and you move things, you always end up putting it somewhere, and this is, well, work to be carried out, and it's going to be work for a summer's day when I'm waiting for things, I think. I've got a really nice gooseberry bush there, which I took out from where I currently have the potatoes. It's really done well in that pot, but I'm going to have to think about putting that somewhere soon, and then a lot of tidying up to do. My potatoes, I've not gone in because, well, it's just been too cold. I don't want the risk of them getting frost damage. My next step on here is to fill all these bins with my saved compost, and then I'll be good to go with potato planting. Nothing much to report on the area by the coop. My hugelkultur bed is ready, and this bed, which had garlic in it last year and showed a little bit of white rot, is vacant at the moment, so I've got to think what I'm going to put in there. In terms of planning for the whole plot, I've not really got very far advanced. I'm really laid back about it. I'm sort of thinking, as things become ready and I decide I want to plant, I'll plant, you know, with a few exceptions like the white rot avoidance. I'm just going to go with the flow. And the only real consideration I've got is whether plants are tall or short. If they're tall, I want them in my hooped beds that have got tall hoops, and if they're short, the opposite. I do need to repair this. I've got a bit of work to do. Recover that bed, get it finished, get this constantly falling hoop upright, and I've got another one like that over there. So got a few things that I need to get done, but mainly my winter projects are over. I'm going to build that cage for my gooseberry, so that's my wood stash at the moment. Not a great deal, but hopefully it'll be enough. Let's go and have a look at the top level. So the squash bed is still pretty dormant, and I'm going to grow courgettes up here this time because, to be honest, we had more squash than we needed, which is something I didn't expect to say, but there we are. So that's pretty dormant. I've got to clear up those paths. I've got a bit of a plan for paths. I sort of came up with an idea, and it was also suggested by somebody in the comments. I think it's a good solution, so I'm going to give it a try. I'll show you that. Well, Mrs. K's bed is looking well. I've still got to do a bit of weeding for her. She does remind me often, and I will get to it. I've given them a bit of a clean up on the fruit garden, but things are bursting into leaf now. These black currants, and garlic's doing well. Haven't got any sign of calendula seed germinating, I don't think. Oh, there may be a little bit in there. And it looks like I got a little bit of self-sown oregano at the base of that. Let's have a sniff. Yep, self-sown oregano. Good times. And we've got a few weeds, some thistles in there which have got to come out. And my flowers, perennials, Sweet Williams, and they're looking mighty fine, so I think we'll have a good show there. Rhubarb's looking good. You can see how that's really beefed up, and these varieties just a little bit slower, but still looking really healthy, apart from the one that I killed, which I'm going to have to decide what I put in there. My pear tree is just about to come into blossom, and that's really good news because we've got past the really cold weather, and last year I didn't have a single pollination and a single fruit because, well, the bees weren't out. It was just too cold late in the season, and it flowered when it was cold. I think that's nature's way of giving the pear tree a bit of a rest, but as you can see, it's absolutely covered in blossom now. It's going to look beautiful. Hopefully it'll all come out on a warm and windless day. Gooseberry covers I think are working, although there's no sign of sawfly on those gooseberry bushes that are not covered, but I'm not taking any chances. Got to build that frame somehow and tidy this up, but I'm pretty committed to stopping that sawfly this year. And then of course there's the raspberry bed, which is probably the biggest winter project I've ever done. I am pleased with it. It was a real eyesore at the top of the allotment and coming in the gate, and well, things are starting to grow now. I can see some leaves coming out on these raspberries. Who knows what this season will be like? I'm hopeful that we'll get fruit because I think I got it all done quickly enough. When I did a bit of research, it says get your raspberries in before the end of March, and I just about did that. I've got to pin down this walkway, and I've got to finish this walkway with some more flagstones. So I'm trying to work out what to do about that. But all in all, I'm pretty pleased with how it's come along, and hopefully that'll be a good raspberry bed in years to come. Well, the other winter project I did is sort of forget what you have done during the winter, but I got this patio retained nicely and got some sand in it and basically gave it some rigidity, and that's bearing up really well. I'm pleased to say, what a fantastic show of tulips. I don't do very much of those tulips, they just do their thing, and this year so many heads on them. And some of you may remember I had a bit of a go at growing ranunculus. It wasn't very successful, but interested to see this year that I've got 3 in here that are trying to come through. Hopefully we'll get a flower or two on them, we'll see. And my dahlias at the moment completely dormant still, so they look like they're a bit dry and need a water. And my garlic that I put into tubs, well, wherever I've done that, it seems to have succeeded. So it's a really good method if you're suffering from white rot. Well, I won't take you in the polytunnel this time because well, I'll dedicate a video to showing you how my seeds are doing. It's a mixed bag, but very interesting. Got a bit more sowing to do, so I'll have a session in there later. But overall, I think the plot's shaped up nicely. It's a pleasure to work it when it's looking tidy. I do have a bit of a tidy, well, obsession, but it does help me to get on with the job and enjoy it. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you do, then why not like and subscribe? And if you want my updates on a Wednesday and a Sunday at 8 PM, then click on the bell. Hope your plot's coming on nicely and you've got plenty of veg growing on. Diolch yn fawr.